So we have already talked about how DC Comics has been folding over the Milestone Media universe into its main Prime Earth continuity canon. We've already talked about it with Icon, and now the latest issue of the new history of DC Comics has now cemented the Milestone Media universe as DC Comics canon. Let's talk about what that might mean for the future of heroes like Static, Icon, Rocket, Hardware, and the Blood Syndicate.
Word to wise, grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Okay, so I talked about this before with Icon. I'm not going to relitigate anything that I said during that video. I will just say that if you would like to know more about my thoughts on the first issue of the new history of DC Comics, go watch the video up here. That will tell you everything that I feel about Icon's inclusion into DC Comics. But here I wanted to focus a little bit more on the other characters because, as I said in that first video, I'm pretty sure that Icon was not going to be the only one. There were going to be other characters. They were going to be showcased. It just was a matter of when, not if. And I feel like I was kind of slick right about when we would probably see it. I said we would not see it in the second issue. It would probably be somewhere around issue 3, maybe issue 4 at the latest. And when you know who won the pony, issue number 3 is where it happens. And in this, we get 2 full pages, unlike with Icon, because with Icon, I think Icon only took up like maybe like a fourth of the page in that first issue. Here, we get 2 full pages of Milestone Media love. We first get, to the surprise of no one, Static being first and foremost in this. We get to see where it says the US government teamed up with Dakota City's Alva Industries to create a new generation of superpowered soldiers. Their, quotey fingers, test run, however, backfired dramatically when tear gas, laced with Alva's proprietary Q juice, was used to subdue a group of young protesters. Now, this part is very important, and I'm gonna need y'all to sit down. This is not making the original Dakotaverse canon to the DC Comics universe. It is making the current iteration of Milestone Media's Dakotaverse canon in the DC Comics universe proper. So, case in point, if you have not been reading the Static Season 1 series, Static Shadows of Dakota, you didn't read Icon and Rocket Season 1, you didn't read Hardware Season 1, you didn't read Blood Syndicate Season 1, you didn't read Duo, For those who don't know, Duo was this nice little series that actually is the character Zombie from the original Dakotaverse, but they changed it to being Duo, and the character has a slightly less problematic history than what they had in the original Dakotaverse, where a woman was literally fridged to give Zombie his powers. Like, quite literally fridged in order for Zombie to exist as he does. So they changed it up where, in this particular version, you have both of your main characters, male and female, together, no one being fridged, at least not permanently, to benefit one particular character. So there's that. If you want to know more about the character Zombie and that, once again, problematic history, you can go check it out up here. But yes, this is making mainline Milestone Media continuity as we know it in 2025 part of DC Comics canon. Now, I've talked about this before, but I will reiterate this. This makes things very interesting because it has already been made a matter of public record that in the Milestone universe, the very one that DC and Mark Waid are talking about in this instance, this is the same universe where Superman is already dead. Superman was unalived as a small infant child. So I'm guessing that while yes, it's going to be using the same time frame and timeline or whatever of the current Milestone Media universe, it's also not going to be using every single little minute detail that has come up in each of the different Milestone Media series. I don't think we have to worry about that. But carrying on from there, it goes on to say that the resultant Big Bang killed many of them, but those who survived, the Bang Babies if you will, were granted various super abilities and began turning Dakota City upside down as new heroes and villains stormed the streets. Foremost among Dakota's new protectors was high school student Virgil Hawkins, whose electromagnetic powers allowed him to stand up to the world's bullies and bang babies gone wrong as Static. Now, this is important. They're putting respect on Static's name because, let's keep it a buck, while yes, they introduced Icon first as, being a part of the DC Comics universe, the reasoning behind that was not because Icon was more popular. It was because Icon's history goes back further than Static's, with Icon having shown up in the mid-1800s in the American South during slavery. Static was not even thought of. Wasn't even a gleam in his daddy's eyes. His daddy wasn't even a gleam in his daddy's eyes by that point, and so on and so on and so forth. So now we're kind of reaching that point where we're touching on 90s history in the new history of DC Comics. So that's why Static is coming up now. But once again, Static is the most popular character of the Dakotaverse. It's not even close. Yeah, people know who Icon and Rocket and Hardware are. There are people who know who the Blood Syndicate are, but Static is the only one who I would say achieved as close to mainstream appeal as any other Milestone hero could have ever hoped to. He literally had his own animated series. That many people who don't even know the Dakotaverse is a thing, they know about the series Static Shock. We've literally made jokes on this channel about how we can tell who didn't read the Static comics by who calls him Static and who calls him Static Shock. The point is, Static, the most popular hero in Milestone, is now officially reintegrated into DC Comics canon. He was already there before, technically, because of the New 52. And while, yes, you had DC and Milestone's Worlds Collide event that brought together the DC Comics heroes and the Milestone Media heroes, it's always been nebulous whether or not these characters actually exist in the same space at the same time. And with everything that happened with Doomsday Clock and how it undid some stuff and redid some stuff, it was always nebulous as to whether or not Static's inclusion in New 52, as well as the rest of Milestone Media's heroes by proxy, whether or not any of that stood. But now we know for 100% certainty they are now a part of that canon. And this begs a very interesting question. Does this mean that DC Comics and Milestone Media have come to an agreement on who can use what? I say all this because I kept seeing so many people thinking that DC owns Milestone Media characters when the whole DCU thing was kicking off, and there were people who were asking James Gunn, why are we not getting a Static movie? Why are we not getting a Blood Syndicate movie? Why are we not getting Icon, Rocket, so on and so forth? He wouldn't say anything about it because technically, from a legal standpoint, he can't. Anything he says could potentially fuck up the deal going forward. We saw this with Spider-Man. The fact that word got out that Marvel and Sony were negotiating about Spider-Man, that getting out into the ether, it actually made Marvel's position stronger from an outside looking in perspective. The same thing could happen with DC and Milestone, and that would be a thing that could literally force one's argument to be stronger even when it wasn't. It's a whole legal thing. But now the question can truly be asked, what's the deal? Because all these characters, well, yes, DC has publishing rights. They do not have ownership rights. So did Milestone broker a deal that said, hey, you can use our characters so long as we get our bread, or what's going on? Because a lot of other stuff has happened. Some of you may remember there was a Static movie that was announced. There was a Milestone Media animated film that was announced. All sorts of stuff. All of it has been shelved or at least put on the back burner, and the DCU might be why, possibly. But once again, we're talking about Static. We haven't gotten to the other characters that are involved in this. The Blood Syndicate, on the same page as Static. They bring up that the rival gangs clashed in Dakota's suburb of Paris Island as power-hungry bang babies waged war with superpowers rather than bullets, and the Blood Syndicate made up of bang babies from various gangs and led by Tech 9, Wise Son, and Fade restored peace to the island. Now, that's important to note as well because this is literally playing off of Blood Syndicate Season 1, where they faced off with Holocaust. He tried to take over Paris Island, technically did. The Blood Syndicate shut that shit down, and Bob's your uncle. So there's that. There's not really much to say there. I think the Blood Syndicate's inclusion in this is probably the most important part, because of any of the Milestone Media properties, Blood Syndicate is one of the ones that's probably the most contentious. And I don't say that because, oh, it's bad. No, it's contentious because of all of Milestone Media stuff, it was the most blackest and brownest thing that was going on. It was a rainbow coalition of superheroes who all ranged from varying degrees of black, Muslim, Puerto Rican, Korean, Chinese. I think there was only one character on the group who was white, and it was Boogeyman, who pretended to be black. He was this kid who could turn into like a rat monster. Yeah, it turned out he was actually a white kid who was talking street. There was also a trans character on the team as well. So once again, we're talking about probably the wokest team in the history of comics, a team that came out in the mid to early 90s, mind you. So yeah, that's gonna mean a lot. Not to mention it represented gang culture. And while yes, a lot of it was anti-gang culture, there was a lot of pro-gang culture in there as well. So I do wonder about that. The fact that Blood Syndicate was put front and center, I was actually shocked the Shadow Cabinet was not brought up in any of this, though they may be brought up in issue 4 of the new history of DC Comics. We might see them there. Maybe. Who knows? But then we jump over to the very next page, and that's where they're talking about Icon, Rocket, Hardware, and pretty much all the rest of the characters by proxy. Like, they point out that, yeah, Raquel Irvin, aka Rocket, is not a bang baby, which that's not news. She has always been, like, other than Hardware, the one degular human that was large and in charge in the Milestone universe. She uses technology to wield the power that she has no differently than Hardware does. I do appreciate they are completely glossing over that Icon versus Hardware bullshit. Thankfully, we didn't need that. We didn't need that in this universe or any other universe. But yeah, I like what they're doing here. I mean, I'm not gonna rehash any of this second page because honestly, I've done videos about all of these, different characters to some degree or another. So do with that information what you will. But I like that we're taking these characters, we are putting them front and center, we are giving them the reverence that they deserve, we are giving the history, making sure that the readers are aware this history is true to form. And while yes, Milestone has been in and out of DC Comics continuity multiple times throughout the years, they are back and presumably here to stay. I don't know what the future holds for Milestone. I've talked about it before, about how disappointed I have been with how Milestone Media has been handled. Probably the thing I have not enjoyed, the one thing I didn't enjoy was the Icon versus Hardware stuff, but I, for the most part, enjoyed just about everything else that's come out up to that point. I think that there was a lot of promise with Shadow Cabinet that has not been followed up on, which granted, it only just recently came out, but there's not been a peep about anything Milestone Media related since it came out, and I'm wondering if this is why. I would love to be proven correct on this, that this is why, or proven wrong. I just want to know answers. I want answers regardless of whether they're good or bad, or whether they suit my headcanon. But I just want to know, because I feel like that is the one area that Milestone Media has failed at. There's another video out floating around where I talked about how, like, Jason Todd, the Red Hood of DC Comics, how his greatest villain isn't the Joker, that it's actually DC Comics. I feel like Milestone Media has a similar issue. Milestone Media's, like, the heroes of Milestone Media, Static, Icon, Rocket, Hardware, Blood Syndicate, Shadow Cabinet, their greatest nemesis is not Edwin Alva. It's Milestone Media's inability to communicate with their fans. So I'm hoping somewhere in the midst of all this, the ship gets righted. Look, I'll put this out here. Milestone, Reggie, Dennis, come holla at your boy. I'll be the hype man. If you want to just feed me some press statements every now and again, just so we can keep the appetites wet for Milestone Media, because the people want it. They need it. I never have a day go by where someone does not mention to me, man, are they ever going to make that Static movie? Man, are they ever going to do anything with Milestone Media? Are we ever going to get that Hardware movie? Are we ever get that Icon and Rocket? Like, it's all the time. So please, help me help you. Nigga! I'm sorry, I know I'm being hyperbolic here, but it's coming from a place of love. It's coming from a very extreme place of love, because I'm not a hater, I'm a Milestone congratulator. I also know Milestone is capable of doing better, and I want to see them do better. I want to see them thrive. I want to see these characters back at the forefront. I know these characters can be viable, so... yes, this is all good news. The only other thing I'll probably add to this is that they do say at the very bottom of the second page that the heroes of Dakota operated bravely and brightly for a time, then mysteriously disappeared. Okay, fuck that. We know why they disappeared. The doors had to be shuttered because they just weren't generating the revenue that they had hoped for. But that's Mark Waid being kind. But then it goes on to say, but I know better than most that heroes rarely stay missing for long. So yes, who knows what's going to happen next with this? I do have it under good authority that Static will be back sooner rather than later. I can't talk about the intricacies of that, but I've just heard rumblings. That's all I can say. And even in saying that, I have probably already said way too fucking much. That's all I got. I got nothing else. We do know that there is the Batman Beyond Static thing, but I'm talking about even more Static beyond that. Pun intended. Anyway, that is truly it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well if you haven't done so already, and tap that notification bell. That way you don't miss out on anything. And also, before you get out of here, if you're watching this on mobile, make sure you hit that hype button. It'll help even further push the reach out. And here's the best part. Hype is free. You don't have to pay a dime for it. I think everyone gets a certain allotment of hype that they can dish out. You can use that hype to help your boy out, and the videos that get the most hype, they get pushed in front of the biggest audiences. So please help a brother out. Let's do that. And anyway, let me know what you think about this news about Milestone Media becoming fully integrated into the DC Comics universe. And yeah, until next time, keep it plus ultra. Peace out.